What is up, guys? Welcome back. Thanks for coming. Today, I'm just going to say a few things, but we'll get straight back into the important stuff, which is a big guide today, after everything I have to say. So, to start off with, I'm just going to explain what I'll be doing, this X-Pack, and everything that I'll be supplying you guys with on my channel. To start off with, I don't like the playstyle changes for the Feral Druids at the moment, so I'm not giving up on it completely. I'm just putting it somewhat on the bench. I'll be doing it as a side thing, and I'll be meaning a Windwalker monk this expansion. So I'm sorry if any of you were out there for just the Feral Druid, but at the moment they've changed from what I fell in love with Druids into the first place. So I'm going to bench it for now and see if I can redeem it later on. With that said, obviously I said I was going to put in Windwalker monk, and that's what I'll be basing most of my content around this foreseeable future, for now at least, and hopefully we can do alright with that. So welcome to the guide. This is a Windwalker PvP monk guide, which I'll be explaining the spec and rotation or priority listing of the Windwalker monk, and I'll be giving you my thoughts on the monk throughout this process. Let's just dive right in. For the monk, I do believe not much has changed since the Mist of Pandaria expansion in talents wise. So first tier we have Tiger's Lust, obviously. It's just the best one out of that tier. It removes you from movement and power effects and gives you 30% increased run speed for 6 seconds on a 30-second cooldown. Now you can macro this to your friends or macro to yourself, which is I've done both of. But definitely the best one of this tier. The speed boost from that one and the extra roll from that one is nowhere near as good, just from the movement routes alone. In this tier, I've chosen Chi Wave. Chi Wave is essentially a little projectile which you fire at an enemy, and it'll bounce between your enemy and friendly targets, whoever need the healing the most, up to 7 times. And that can happen quite quickly if they're within melee range, within like a couple of seconds, or 1 second or so. And what it does is it deals damage to the enemy and heals the friendly targets. This is a 15-second cooldown, which means you can pretty much just spam it. It's got 40-yard range, really good for keeping rogues out of stealth. It's just essentially good for a melee class to have a ranged projectile of some sort, apart from the fact that it has the highest healing from this tier, for the fact that it's a small cooldown and that it just happens so often. Zen Sphere is something you can put on yourself, more of a tank talent, that one. And Chi Burst is the problem is it's the cast time, so anything you can get rid of your cast time, anything that can be instant is a bonus, anything that can be interrupted is not. So that one does do, I believe, more damage, but the cast time and the reduced healing isn't as good. On to the next one, we have, I believe 2's viable in this tier. I've chosen Chi Rube just for the purest the burst capability from this. So when you use it, you have 2 charges on a minute cooldown now, used to be 30 seconds. So that's a little bit of a nerf. But what that does is it gives you 2 Chi per charge, and also 2 stacks of Tiger Eye. Now that Tiger Eye does stack into our mastery, so you can get up to, I've had, I believe, 6 or 8 Tiger Eye from just the 2 Chi Brew pops. If you use it now, I've got 5, so 1 more than I was entitled to from the thing. So that does stack with the mastery. And the other one we have is Ascension, which is maximum Chi by 1, which will make us 6 once you're level 100, or 5 if you're not. It also gives you energy regen by 15%. Now this energy regen is what essentially makes this talent viable. The fact that right now our class is lacking in haste. I've only got 8.63 and I've been going straight haste just for the energy regen to maintain the pressure. So that's appealing in a way, but I just can't go past the Chi Brew since I've played it a long time and I'm used to the playstyle of bursting people like a motherfucker. Sorry for the language. In the 60 tier, charging Oxwave is next to useless. It means a frontal cone or frontal projectile that only stuns for 3 seconds. And Ring of Peace, they've changed from a disarm and silence to an incapacitate. So it's kind of worse than it was. And the fact it's on a 45-second cooldown, not that good. Leg Sweep obviously is amazing. 5-second stun for everyone in 5 yards. AoE stuns is you can't go past it. It has a 45-second cooldown, which is kind of a letdown, but just to blanket stun and everyone around you is amazing. 75 tier. I believe it's 2 in this one. You got Healing Elixirs, I believe it's melee, and then Diffuse Magic is casters. So Healing Elixirs it's essentially like a cheat death or what the shamans have. I forgot what it's called. Under 30% health. Same thing. So whenever you use a brew, you'll be healed for 15% of your health, or when you drop below 35% if you don't use a brew or it's not on cooldown in that time. That's amazing. Seeming in a melee, they get bashed, whatever. Even just for normal dots and stuff, that is a good talent regardless. The other one is diffuse magic. So this is why this would be a caster one, and it makes you 90% immune, or 90% reduces magic taken by 90% for 6 seconds, and transfers all the spells back to the caster. So say an affliction lock comes on you with a Shadow Priest, they're both going crazy, you pop this, all of their dots are going straight back at themselves, and you're 90% less susceptible to magic if they cast it again for 6 seconds. 1.5 minute cooldown versus 18 seconds. That's the 2 difference, but it's good, and I believe it's better for the casters. Now, this 90 tier is a bit controversial. Pure DPS wise, Rushing Jade Wind has a higher output, just because it's constant, no cooldown. Essentially, it lasts as long as its cooldown is. The problem is the 40 energy required to cast it. 40 energy is quite a lot at the moment. We only have 100, as we always have, but with the reduced haste, we're not getting it back as much. So you can choose this talent. I loved it. I played it all through MOP, but you will be finding yourself energy starved a lot of the time at the moment with this current sort of gear to be rolling Rushing Jade. So in that instance, I've been gone invoke Xuen, the White Tiger. It's essentially just summoning the, was it demigod? Yeah, pretty much. The god Xuen from Pandaland. For 45 seconds he'll attack whoever you want, and he also emits constantly a 3 enemy chain lightning effect every 1 second. This is kind of bad for the CC breakers. I'm sure you've heard that a lot somewhere else, that it can break CC from other targets and stuff, but I'll show you a little bit of a macro thing I have later on, which can kind of aid in this process of not breaking CC if you're smart. Now that brings us to 100. Now I'm sure everyone is interested in the 100 talents and kind of interested in why I've chosen Chi Explosion. I believe all 3 of them have their own perks in different situations. So Hurricane Strike is essentially, it's similar but not exactly the same to a Killing Spree, where for 3 Chi you would save up your timer, your cooldown, and you would unleash it, as it says, a rapid series of kicks towards random enemies within 12 yards, dealing a total damage of blah 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 over 2 seconds. While kicking, you're immune to movement impairing effects and loss of control. So it's kind of like a Blade Storm would be a better comparison. You can move while casting this, and I've heard it does a lot of good damage to a single target, but as soon as you get 2 or more, I haven't used it myself, I've heard after 2 or more targets it starts to diminish very quickly in effectiveness. Sounds amazing, and I think I'll be picking it up for duels, just because it's like a Blade Storm. You can just unleash hell, and I believe it only lasts 2 seconds, not like a Blade Storm which I think is 6 or 5. So 2 seconds is good. You can do your damage, just get out. And the other one we have that I haven't chosen is Serenity, which is on a 1.5 second cooldown, and it pretty much, what it says here is you elevate a state of mental and physical serenity for 10 seconds. While in a state, all chi consumptions are instantly refilled. So what in this instance you would do, if you went to go for maximum burst, would be use the 2 chi brews to get your 4 chi, or manually get to 4 chi, and then use this. And in this state, we don't have any cooldowns on our abilities, just globals usually. Within this time, anything you use is instantly refilled. So if you built this up, used it, you could Rising Sun and then Blackout spam, just use Blackout Kick until Rising Sun is up again, and then go back to your Blackout Kicks. This, essentially, if you can keep them within melee range and stop them from running away, is a very good burst tactic or talent to choose. You can just lay into them with as many Blackouts as you want, instantly get up a full Fist of Fury straight away. It's up to you. All the Chi's returned. So it's really good. I mucked around with it a bit, and when you see someone with this weird little glow and they're spamming Blackout Kicks on you, you kind of shoot yourself a little. Now, onto the one I've chosen. Now, like I said, I did use Serenity for a little bit, and I can give you my understanding of Chi Explosion, but I will leave a description, a link in the description to a guy named Xuen. He's another Windwalker monk. and he has a guide on Chi Explosion. So I will link that, or maybe make an annotation on the screen if I remember. But he has a much better way of explaining it than I do, and he has a 3-part guide coming out. It's currently with 1 part out. And so I'll just give you my little rundown. So what it does is essentially replaces Blackout Kick, and it consumes up to 4 Chi, and each benefit gets more as you get to high Chi. So with 1 Chi, you deal damage to the target as you would with a normal Blackout Kick. But it says it also gets that same damage per Chi consumed. So every time you get 1 Chi, you're essentially not doubling, but adding 50% of the damage onto this ability. So it says there 1700 for the first Chi, then you would get another 1700 for the second Chi. So you get to what is it, 2450 or so, 2400, 3400. So it'd be 3400 damage, and then the next one would be, you know, 1700 on top of that. So that stacks just as the first Chi thing. And on the second Chi, you were doing everything below it. So for 2 Chi, you do 50% damage over 6 seconds, so it gets a dot as well, plus the 2 Chi bonus of the 1 Chi stack. A bit confusing, I know, but bear with me. On the third Chi, you also generate a charge of Tiger Eye, which also stacks into your mastery. So for 3 Chi, that's the one you want to try and go for. You get a Tiger Eye, a 50% damage over 6 seconds dot on the target, plus 3 stacks of 1724 damage, plus all your stats and whatever, dealt to the target all at once. And then again at 4 Chi, you'll deal extra damage from that 1 Chi bonus, and you will also deal damage to everyone within 8 yards of the target used. I've gotten many a rogue and feral druid out of stealth with this ability. You jump a warrior or someone else, you use your Chi brew, and then instantly Chi explodes, and whack, it does an AoE ability, whack someone else, and you see a rogue running for the hills because he just got knocked out of stealth. Now he's pissed. This ties in with your combo breaker or Blackout Kick. It's the same thing, so you get Chi Explosion procs. But I will be leaving that description in bloody hell. I will be leaving that link in the description to Xuen's channel and his guide video for that. So hopefully he can explain that a little bit better than I do. But he is the one that has convinced me in the first place to use it, and now I understand the power of Chi Explosion over the other talents of level 100. We'll move on to the glyphs now, which will be a little bit confusing, assuming we have what I would say would be 5 mandatory glyphs, and the problem is we only have 3 slots. So I'm currently rolling with the 2 ones we had last expansion, which is Touch of Karma, which essentially gives it a ranged attack. This is amazing, assuming you can't be caught out against mages and locks and any other ranged class. It's essential. You cannot live as a monk without this. The next one is Touch of Death, which takes away the Chi costs, but increases the cooldown by 2 minutes. So usually it would be on a 1.5 minute cooldown, it goes up to 3.5, but not having to worry about stacking up to 3 Chi just to get an instant kill, which you probably could have used that 3 Chi on a kill anyway, is amazing. Plus the fact that you can just nuke healers within a Fist of Fury, and then spam your Touch of Death Keybone minus T, and instantly get the kill once they drop below that 10% health range. The next one I have chosen to go on with is Glyph of Freedom Roll. And essentially what this does is when you roll Chi Torpedo or Flying Serpent Kick, your abilities dispel all snares affected you when used. So this was a set bonus in MOP, I believe it was a 2-set bonus, back when we had the gear, and they've decided to make this a glyph, which is a problem, seeming that we fact that now Fist of Fury requires a target, so landing Fist of Fury is quite difficult, seeming you have to be stationary, facing the target, and within range to get it off. So it is possible, it's just a little bit difficult. And to combat that, we have another glyph called Glyph of Flying Fists. This is one of the ones I would recommend. Increases the range of Fist of Fury by 5 yards, essentially making it easier to land Fist of Furies when you're having to run up and then become stationary to cast it. And the other one that we need is Paralysis, which is kind of like the blind macro for the rogues. It just removes all damage over time effects that will cause Paralysis to break early whenever you cast it. So you say you have a warrior, and he's got Rend on the target, which is an ability that lots of people are using currently. If you paralyze the target, it would remove Rend for you, so you won't have to worry about that paralysis breaking within the next 1 or 2 seconds after you paralyze them. Very handy, almost essential for arenas, but these are the 3 I've chosen. It's up to you. Those are the 5 I would recommend, and that's all she wrote. Okay, so for the rotation, it's not really a rotation, it's much more of a uh, priority listing, I believe it's called, where you prioritize certain things over others. Pretty much the changes of the monks now is that they've increased the energy cost of jab by 5. So you will be prioritizing expel harm over jab. So whenever expel harm's up, use that instead of jab, just because the energy is less, and you can usually get 2 of them out where a jab is quite hard. The other thing would be to be maintaining the Tiger Palm buff, I suppose you can call it, where you ignore the armor as much as possible. It lasts 20 seconds. It's not hard. Kind of like a slice and dice rogues and stuff like that, like old Inquisition for pallies. You have to maintain that as much as possible. And a little tip or advice is I would definitely stack up to 4 chi and use that before going into a Fist of Fury, because with Fist of Fury without that is severely lacking in the damage abilities, especially if you only use Tiger Eye on the fists. So a little hit to hip is to use that before pretty much anything. Another one about Chi Explosion. The preferred range to be using it at would be to 2 or 3 Chi. Only go to 4 Chi if you kind of want to hit multiple targets on purpose. I'd be using it on 2 or 3 most of the time just to save that Chi consumption. And the other one is that now with the Fist of Fury in the play, it only stuns once, not continuously. So you won't be able to get rid of a whole stun DR with one Fist of Fury anymore. It only stuns once for the first time, so if they trinket it, they can stun you and interrupt your whole Fist of Fury. I've seen that and done it myself against other monks. But so my advice would be to be using leg sweep after Chi Fist of Fury. So you would get into the thing, make sure your Tiger Eye buff is up, and then the Rising Sun to prevent healing. And then the way I've been doing it lately is just double disables. When you disable when they're already slowed, they get snared for a few seconds. Very handy. That doesn't last long, but it certainly stops them enough, usually, for me, give me enough time to get a Fist of Fury in place. And then once that Fist of Fury is active, I can spam any other abilities I need to when I get out to get the kill if I'm close enough. Otherwise, usually I expel harm and then go straight into a Rising Sun afterwards. But then a leg sweep afterwards would get into a follow-up stun, and it's pretty devastating. Assuming Fist of Fury does 4 seconds, leg sweep would be doing 2.5, not for 5, because it's half duration. But it's definitely a deadly combo, those two together, especially if you have any cooldowns active. And definitely, I've landed a lot of kills just with those two things. So that would be my recommendation, would be to use those after each other. That wraps it up pretty much, guys, for the moment. I probably was going to talk about my comments on Warlords as an expansion so far, but I'll probably just leave that for another video. This is my guide, guys. If you have any feedback, please let me know in the comments if I can do anything better. I'm definitely down for the feedback and getting better and producing better content for you guys. As a whole, I'd just like to make a last comment on the class. Monks are average. They're not excellently amazing at anything, and they're not absolutely terrible. It just comes down to the amount of time you play them. Don't believe what everyone else says. When I was leveling my monk, I had one guy tell me that monks were absolute crap and not to level it and go level a pally instead. But seriously, the last 2 weeks I've had this cartoon at level 100 has been the most fun I've had in this current expansion so far. So don't believe what anyone says. Play the tune you want to play for the reasons that you find it enjoyable. Don't play just the flavor of the month pallies and DKs at the moment. Play what you find enjoyable and be well and be good at it. If you like this video, give it a like, subscribe to my channel if you want to see a bit more monk PvP. I'll be doing feral druids too, or just do you want to hear my sweet voice? And yeah, so if you want to leave a comment on your thoughts, give a video a like and subscribe to my channel for more content. That'd be great. I appreciate it, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.